Yeah, don't forget to turn your mic on. About the time the meeting's over. I ran into technical difficulties. My arm wouldn't extend that far. Well, I keep mine charged. Oh.
I don't know how long they last.
Check your drawer to see if they sometimes they put a couple of batteries in there. I got 2 batteries here. I need them.
The girl in the orange shirt.
I don't know whether they're any good or not, but they're in there.
Miss Harold.
You can check with my wife. I wish it would.
Quentin Tarantino over there. Yeah, I'm sure it will. It's in the. It's a yeah, that one is.
I would like to call to order this board meeting of the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency, known as the CRA. I do apologize for being 3 minutes late, but I had some very distinguished guests that I had to speak to on the front row, so we'll start 3 minutes late today. The second item after being called to order is the consent agenda. If you don't mind, I'll read all 3 of these items and then ask for a motion and a second, and the board if there's any discussion, and then if there's any discussion from the public, I will give you that opportunity. The consent agenda includes item 2, approval of meeting minutes from June 28th, 2016. Item number 3, approval of residential incentive application 607 West 13th Street. And item number 4, approval of residential incentive application 609 West 13th Street. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the board? Would you like any information from staff? Any questions from the public? Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you call the roll for a vote?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the consent agenda is approved. New business, item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the commercial storefront application for Rhodes Motorsport at 809 Florida Avenue. Do we have any staff information regarding this?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Jenke is here to speak about it.
Thank you.
We received an application from Bill Rhodes, owner of Rhodes Motorsports, regarding the recent renovation of his building on Florida Avenue. He completely renovated this building. I attached some before and after pictures to the agenda packet to show a comparison. He submitted all the required documentation and is requesting $27,500 to be reimbursed for his renovation expenses, this is the maximum amount that we can allocate toward a commercial incentive application. Staff recommendation is to reimburse him $7,500. And if you recall, in the past, the maximum amount that we gave to an applicant was $5,000. However, Mr. Rhodes went with this project really above and beyond. I mean, he substantially improved this property, and therefore my recommendation would be to reimburse him $7,500.
Are there questions from the board or discussion? Is there a motion and a second for item number 5?
I move we approve Mr. Yankee's recommendation.
I'll second it.
I move we approve his recommendation.
And there's been a second. Are there any questions or concerns from the public? Mr. Walker?
Good evening. Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I was present at the initial instigation of this program, and it was in writing, approved by the board for $27,500. Of that $27,500, $7,500 was architectural designs, $20,000 was for the renovations. The first applicant of this was treated like dirt when he submitted the application for $27,500. It was refused. And it brought questions as to, of course, questions by this board, specifically Mr. Ashbrook and a few of the people that were here at that time, is if we had to pay $27,500 every time somebody wanted to do a storefront correction, the CRA would go broke. So they awarded $5,000 to that company that asked for it, which kind of took the citizen by surprise, because it was in writing. If he did everything that was per that request, he would get $27,500. So he went back with a bad taste in his mouth. He complained behind closed doors to a few people. And miraculously, the city, as I understand it, found $20,000 in a mistake of impact fees and awarded him the $20,000. That pacified that individual, and it made everybody happy. But still, that piece of paper was on the record books. And at that time, I stood up and said, I think you better take that off. Because every person that puts in for $27,500 and gets it is going to bankrupt the CRA. Not saying that that person was incorrect. He was correct in doing it. This person's correct doing it too. It's in writing. But I think you better come down to the world of reality here and take a look at what you're giving away for somebody that renovates a business on Florida Avenue. You didn't give $27,500 to Roberts Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment or concern? Okay, thank you. At this time, then we will call the roll.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so the motion passes. Item number 6 is resolution number 2016-09-01, adopting a tentative community redevelopment agency budget for fiscal year 2016-2017. Is there a motion? Oh, excuse me, could you read? Do we have that resolution for you to
Yes.
read? Okay, thank you.
Resolution number 2016-09-01, a resolution adopting a tentative budget for the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency for the fiscal year 2016-2017 and appropriating for the purposes specified redevelopment trust funds and amounts specified for disbursement according to said budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
Also move.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion or questions from the public? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Once again, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. On the 2016, 2017, down there's a cash forward carry of, let's say, let me round it off to make it manageable, $300,000. I requested to know why we're getting a cash forward balance from somewhere. And the answer came back from the city. Cash forward is the difference between anticipated revenues and anticipated expenses. No actual programs, and I can't understand the word there, can exist or whatever. I'm trying to get a line on this because as I look at $300,000 cash forward, that had to come from somewhere. So I looked back, and in the back, there were some programs from the previous budget that were not done. I then took an exception and listened to an engineer from Department of Transportation, state of Florida, and he told me a very interesting fact. He said CRA is good for one thing and one thing alone, sidewalks to nowhere. So I looked at the projects that were canceled, and they happen to come up to maybe $100,000, $150,000. And I'm wondering if that's the cash forward from the previous year to this year of projects that were not done. I can give you a list of the projects. You, the board, are the ones that approved those projects. You, the board, should know if those projects were not completed. You are going to approve the budget for next year and get the cash forward and approve that projects for that year. My point is this. If the projects were not completed last year, why aren't they listed? And why aren't they listed as cash forward to this year? And you are the ones that make the decision, not the staff. Thank you.
I understood the question. Mr. Walker, I don't mean that as any fault against you. I'm just not sure I understand what you're asking, and maybe someone else does. Do you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think what you have here in Mr. Janke or Mrs. Miller could come up here and speak to it as well, but it's just essentially a ledger. You've got what's banked already that hasn't been spent. Then you take a look at the projected expenses, the projects you're speaking of, and then we also project the revenue based on the ad valorem estimates, et cetera. So what you have here is a product at the end of the year while they estimate, updated at, at the start of the year, updated at mid-year amended budget, and then we come in another month or so, and then we will, okay, so what you have is you have some projects that may have been scheduled like the first phase of the park across the street that didn't get finished. And so there's a cash carry forward on that. Doesn't necessarily mean the project wasn't done. That means we don't pay that until they're absolutely finished, and it could sandwich 2 fiscal years. You do have some projects, and you can clearly see if they're not done, the commission will know, or they'll show up on the next fiscal year. For example, the sign at 17th Street. I mean, that's been on, I think, probably the last 2 budgets, and it'll be on this next budget year because there's been holdups with the Department of Transportation on that. So it's just a running ledger, if you will, and that's what you're seeing. I mean, everything's transparent. You can see what projects were done. You can see on a monthly basis the ledger of what was spent on the CRA and what wasn't spent.
If you could clarify for me, Mr. Walker, what you were asking was not so much about the ledger items. If I was hearing you correctly, you were asking if those projects have been canceled. Was that what you were asking me? Or what
I anticipated what
Okay.
you were going to say,
Okay.
and here's the paper that shows you they were canceled. And the money, that's why I'm trying to conclude, and that's why I asked for the information of the cash forward of these projects being canceled 2016.
I don't know of any project that you're speaking of that, like the park has
Well,
not been canceled.
they're
They're
crossed off.
Is that our paper or yours, Mr. Walker, that you
Yours.
Okay.
It shows you the Sheffield Park, for example. It's crossed off.
So it's a misleading ledger is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
what I'm getting at is, I'm looking at a cash forward, and I'm wondering where that cash forward come from. And I'm looking back, and the only thing I can see is some projects of 2016 that were crossed off. And I'm thinking, I'm hoping, that those are the projects' money is being transferred to the next year, 2016. If that's the case, then I understand it. But when the answer that came from the city, it didn't jive with it. They said They couldn't correlate that. So if we're correlating that, I can understand it. Thank you.
Or a concern? Questions or concerns? Okay. At this time, then, let's, Mr. Schubert, call the roll for Resolution 2016-0901.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Thank you. And so the resolution passes. Item 7 is a time for public commentary regarding the CRA or the CRIA Advisory Board. If there's any item that you would like to discuss that has not been discussed today, or if you have something else to add, you're free to approach the podium at this time. Anyone? Yes, sir.
It's not on the schedule.
Just something you'd like to bring to the attention of the CRA Board? Now, this is not our regular commission meeting. This is the CRA Board. We're about to adjourn. It'll start in just a few minutes. Okay? All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, then at this time, if there's no further comment, this meeting is adjourned. Start the commission meeting. At this time, I'd like to call to order the City Commission meeting for Monday, September the 12th, 2016. And I would like to open with a word of prayer. And then immediately following that, we have very special guests today from Rising Leaders Academy here in Panama City, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and also sing the national anthem. So thank you so much for coming out today from Rising Leaders Academy. And your principal and teachers are going to send me all of your names, and we'll be out to visit you with certificates and cupcakes soon. Thank you. Okay, if you would stand for prayer. Father, thank you so much for bringing us together tonight to discuss the important issues of the city and to talk about how we'll be spending the money and the budget this year. Help us to have a congenial meeting where everyone is able to express themselves freely and feel that their voice has been heard. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for these precious children who've come tonight and are willing to take part in government at such a young age. And as we move forward through the meeting, bless us, bless our families, and bless always our law enforcement and our first responders who are watching out for us here in Lynn Haven. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, come on. And you can turn towards the flag if you want. If you would join the Rising Leaders students now in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. I'd love to thank their school director, Ms. Suhaj Aber, for bringing them out tonight. Thank you, and thank all of you so much. We really enjoyed that. Do not feel that you have to stay for this entire exciting meeting, but feel free to stay if you would like. Moving on to item number 3. This is going to be a series of sort of boring times and hammers hitting the desk, but the first public hearing is now open. It is 6:09. Item number A is the tentative millage rate for the 2016 tax roll. At this time, are there any comments from the public? There appear to be none. Is there a motion to adopt resolution, well, first of all, if you would read resolution 2016-09658, please, Mr. Schubert. Thank you.
Accompanying statement too. Resolution number 2016-09-658, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, levying the tentative ad valorem property tax millage rate for the municipal purposes on all taxable property within the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016 and ending September 30th, 2017, stating the percentage by which the millage to be levied exceeds the rollback rate and providing an effective date. For the purposes of funding a portion of the fiscal year 2016-2017 general budget, fund budget of the City of Lynn Haven, a millage rate of 3.9 is proposed for 2016. With a current year rollback rate of 3.8524, the current proposed rate as a percentage change of the rollback rate is 1.24%.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2016-09-658?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any comment at this time from the public? Any comment from the board? Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. The motion has passed. Moving to item B, the tentative general fund and enterprise fund budgets for fiscal year 2016-2017. This will be to adopt Resolution 2016-09-659, the tentative general fund budget, and approving the enterprise fund budgets for fiscal year 2016-2017.
Resolution number 2016-09-659, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting a tentative general fund budget and approving tentative enterprise fund budgets for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016 and ending September 30, 2017, and appropriating for the purposes specified funds of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, in amounts specified for disbursement according to said budget.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Also move.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any public commentary? There appears to be none. So at this time, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the motion is carried. This public hearing is closed at 6:12 p.m. Central Time. Item number 4 is another public hearing. The time is 6:12 Central. Item A, the tentative...
No.
Item A, the tentative Community Redevelopment Agency budget for fiscal year 2016-2017. Are there any public comments about this redevelopment agency budget? Yes, Mrs. Walker, please.
Yes. On,
State your name and address.
on 75 of the budget that we worked on in July, it has professional services other for the original fiscal year 16-17, and it was $66,800. Is that the cost? Does that include the cost of the $60,000 report that was done on updating the CRA area to include the fuel depot?
I believe that was, Ben, was that, Mr. Jenke, was that sandwiched between the two fiscal years? I know all that wasn't that study. I think part of that, and we can get you the precise, some of that was carried forward to the 16-17, the 66,800.
Right.
Some of those professional services of the 181,000 were obviously not that study, were something else, but part of that, there was a partial payment for that study, what was done now, and it was a smaller payment relative to what's going to be done. The majority of that money is for the actual CRA update, the actual plan, not what you saw a couple of months ago. So the answer is maybe 15-20% of that was in there. We can get you the exact number, and the rest was, I believe, professional services for Sheffield, for a park. I have to go back to last year's budget. Yes. You're asking about the 15-16, what was in that professional
No,
service?
I was asking in the original FY 16-17, there was $66,800.
Oh, yes, that's the study.
And I know that the cost of that CRA expansion
Plan up.
report was $60,000 on the nose for that one report, and did not know if it was in the 15-16 year or the 16-17 year.
I'm thinking that also included the study which they were telling us needed to be done because there had not been a study done in a while. It was not only the fuel depot study, but it was also the study of the old CRA. Is that correct?
Right, which just happened to incorporate the fuel depot property as part of it.
That was the study that at the time my understanding was, based on the information given, that study had to be done to continue with the CRA, and that's entirely correct about that, but it's not just about the fuel depot. Okay. Any other questions or comments about this item? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution? Did we already do the motion?
Also move.
Okay.
Has it been read?
We read it in the CRA meeting.
Okay,
Do I need to read it
You
again?
read it again.
Okay. Resolution number 2016-0-09-01, a resolution adopting a tentative budget for the Lynn Haven Community Redevelopment Agency for the fiscal year 2016-2017 and appropriating for the purposes specified redevelopment trust funds in amounts specified for disbursement according to said budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017.
Thank you. I did not mean to confuse everyone. I knew I just heard that read, but it was in the other meeting, so I do apologize. Is there a motion now to adopt Resolution 2016-09660?
Also move again.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Questions? Okay, this time would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so the motion is adopted, and this public hearing is closed at 6:17 Central Time. Item number 5 is another public hearing. The time is also 6:17 Central Time, p.m. The large-scale amendment, LSA-16-1, the Lynn Haven Bayou Park and Reserve, Ordinance 1021, and we will not vote on that now.
Public comments.
Are there public comments about this item? We won't be voting on it until item 23. Yes, Mr. Walker.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This is a 10-year program, I understand it, at $14.7 million. Now, my question here is, and I asked this before, has anybody done a study on how much money this city is going to lose from the tax revenue on increased value of the property, of the 90 acres that it's going to be there, how much we're going to lose over this 10-year period? Have anybody done a study on that?
To my knowledge, there's not been a study, and as you know, I'm not fond of studies anyway. I'll let somebody else comment if they want, but I tend to look at it a completely different way, I think, and we've discussed this before, because I see this 90-acre park as not a burden to the city, but as a wonderful asset that we're going to have. So if someone else on the board wants to make a comment to the question, but I don't see it as a loss in any way to us. I know what you're saying, but I don't see it as a loss.
Just a quick comment. That kind of analysis would also have to incorporate the impact that that 98-acre park would have on the adjacent properties. So you've got a park there that would have been more than likely residential. There are a lot of low areas, so you'd have to speculate on what was actually developable or not. One could argue the highest and best use of this property would be for a park because you can't really develop a lot of it in residential. Having said that, there's a lot of properties in there that would have been very high ad valorem properties as far when you take a look at value, but it would have to necessarily be offset with the intrinsic value of having a regional park next to the lots that are going to be built. So, that loss of ad valorem weighed against a $17 million asset. I mean, we're going to be gifted $4 million roughly in operation and maintenance. It's a $4 million property that was purchased and about $9 million of infrastructure that's going into this property. So offset that $17 million with the intrinsic value that this adjacent properties gain, that would all have to go into the calculus of analysis like that. But as the mayor said, we didn't conduct a study because we thought this was the highest and best use of the property.
Yeah, there's different sides of this whole program. You look at it from all perspectives. This community and this board is interested in pandering to big business and getting tax revenue. That's what we're doing. You want to increase your tax revenue so that you can keep going and growing. That's what you want to do. In this respect, you're taking 90 acres that the company that owns it can't give it away, can't sell it, has a high value because it's prime waterfront property, and you're removing it from the tax rolls, period. Already, the 950 acres has removed a heck of a lot from the tax rolls. And in 10 years, they've only built 22 houses there, and half of them haven't even been sold yet. My point here is this. If you look at the total picture here, 90 acres, prime waterfront property, under BP money is going to be developed for a park, taxpayers' money, going to be used for that park. It's going to take it off the tax rolls. The taxpayers could have gotten that property, or a piece of property, 145 acres, for nothing, and satisfied the trust requirement.
I'm not sure I agree with all of that, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree. And I didn't like the word that the board panders to business to try to bring it here. I don't consider it pandering to try and bring new business
in. The CRA, just a few minutes ago, you gave a guy $27,500 to rebuild his building.
No, we didn't give him 27. We gave him 7,500.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Thank you. Okay. But in the respect back to the 950 acres, we've been taking care of that company since inception 15 years ago of the project. We've reduced the property from 95% wetlands down to 45%. We've sold a piece of property that was prime waterfront as a school, taking that off the tax rolls. You've changed the land development in that 950 acres for about at least 10 or 15 times.
Well, I can't go back with you.
That's where I'm coming from, pandering to business.
I appreciate your comments, but I can't go back with you 15 years. We're just looking right now at what's being given to Lynn Haven, and it's a valuable asset, and I think that's how the board sees it.
My question then was, did you ever do a study how much we would lose?
No.
You did not.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like
yes,
to make,
go ahead, please.
First and foremost, I concur with your thoughts on this. I think this actually flies in the face of pandering in that we're doing the opposite of that. And we're trying to do something that doesn't appear to be, or is it associated with pandering to anyone. So I think, and as far as what's going to be there in 10 years property-wise, that's a speculative experiment that I wouldn't even go to, given what's happened in the real estate market the last 10 or 15 years. So to try to anticipate a better, higher use for that piece of property than what it already is projected to be for the residents of Lynn Haven, I concur with our mayor and also Mr. Schubert's thoughts.
Are there any other comments or questions about this park preserve? Okay, thank you. And there will be a vote later in the meeting on item 23, and this public hearing is now closed at 6:23 p.m. Central Time. Item number 6 is again a public hearing. We will be opening it now at 6:23 Central Time. It's the amendment to the Unified Land Development Code, Section 40300, Section 10.01.00, and Section 10.03.00, and it's Ordinance 1023. Are you ready to read that, Mr. Schubert?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Richard, do you have a presentation on that? Ordinance number 1023, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Section 4.03.00, Section 10.01.00, Section 10.03.00, and Section 10.03.04 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to the requirements for minor subdivisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing for an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Ms. Richard, you had a report as well.
Yes. Currently, owners of a parcel which is located, well, most of the requests we're getting of those parcels that are located in the historic plat area, where the Commission a few years ago changed the requirement for the size of a parcel to be a buildable lot from 15,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet. And the frontage has to be 75 square feet. Once you all decided to allow people to split their parcels, we've had quite a few requests for minor subdivisions come to us. And if you recall, the process right now is that we make sure that it complies with all the rules within the Land Development Code, and then we bring it to the board so that you can vote on whether to allow it or not, and then the mayor signs off on it. But a few meetings ago, the last time we brought one, you all had a discussion and agreed that it would be a good idea to take care of this kind of in-house. The mayor will still sign off on it, but the city manager or someone that the city manager, asked to do it, myself or whatever in the planning department, we can take care of the processing as we do now, make sure that it complies with everything. But instead of it then having to come to you, it can just be authorized for approval within house, and then the mayor sign off on it. And so what these are changes to the code book, the Unified Land Development Code, which basically strikes out the language that is there, that isn't now needed, and puts in language, the changed language, to allow that to happen. This first page here, I want to point out that we also had in there that minor subdivisions should not be approved for the same property granted a minor subdivision within the prior 12 months, and that minor subdivisions shall not be approved for the same property owner's property within 200 feet of a property granted one within the prior 12 months. And that language is also coming out because we have large parcels where a developer would like to split into maybe 3 or 4 lots. If they do that at one time, if they want to split it into 3 or 4 lots, they have to come through the regular process. But what happens sometimes is you've got one and they'll split it off and they'll build a house, and then 6 months later they want to build one more single family home. It's not a subdivision. And so that would allow for them to do that rather than kind of tie them up with having to put in all the infrastructure improvements that are in the code book, which are really meant for commercial and residential subdivisions. So that's that language. And then this is a chart which is not really that easy for you to see, but basically it's adding minor subdivision plats into this chart, and it's putting an X under city manager for the party responsible for final review and decision making. And this is really, really difficult to see, but if anybody wants to see this, I've got it in my office. But let me... This is just stating that for plats of, for plots of 3 or more, then the city manager is allowed to okay it so long as it's not above 50. If it's 50, then it has to be a regular plat. If anybody would like to see these documents, I do have them in the office. I thought they would show up bigger on the screen. I apologize.
Are they available on the web for public inspection as well?
Yes.
Okay, that's...
Yes. Well, actually, no, I don't think these are, because I did these. Yes, they are, because it's in the ordinance. It's the ordinance. Yes. Sorry.
Did the Planning Commission vote on this?
No, we didn't take it to the Planning Commission.
Are there questions from the public regarding this Unified Land Development Code? There appear to be none. Are there questions from the board? Okay. And this vote will be item number 24. So we'll close this public hearing now at 6:29. Moving on to item 7. The next public hearing also starts at 6:29 Central Time. This is the preliminary plat application, Shoreline Village, Phase 1C of the Villages of Mill Bayou, PP-2016-1, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing with no vote until item 25.
I have had no communication.
I've had none.
I've had none. And none.
This is the request for a preliminary plat approval, and the location is the villages, Shoreline Village. So The applicant is Shoreline Village 1-C FL, and I want to point that out because this is not the same owner as the rest of the land. D&H still own the rest of the land, but they've sold this phase, this portion of this phase to this entity. The agent is Jonathan Skolarski of Dewberry, Preble Rish, and we have representation from Dewberry here tonight if you have any specific questions. And the location is Mill Bayou Boulevard, which is off Highway 390. The existing land use is TND. The size is 13.5 acres approximately, and what they're proposing is 51 single-family units and homeowner association common areas and amenities. And this shows the location in the blue portion, which is outlined by the red there, that kind of box. These pointer things don't work on these screens, unfortunately. That's the area there that's sandy, that sandy area. You can see where Phase 1A and Phase 1B have already been entered onto the property appraiser's map on their website, and this is to the north. This is Phase 1C to the north. And this is a copy of the preliminary plat. The development order application was approved for the whole of Phase 1 a few years ago. So they have their development order. It's just that as they're going through the sub-phases, they are preparing their plat and bringing the plat to you so that they can sell those plots. Thank you.
And this was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments about item number 7? Any questions or comments from the public? And then that will be voted at item number 25, and this public hearing will be closed at 6:32 p.m. Central Time. Moving on to item number 8, which is also a public hearing beginning at 6:32. The development order application for Mill Bayou North Entrance Road, DO 16-2, which is also the quasi-judicial hearing which we just went through. So do you have another presentation, I assume?
I do.
Thank
yes.
you.
So this is a development order application, and again, this is up on the Mill Bayou site, but this time it's for permission to construct the entrance road that is going to come in to the north of Deer Point Elementary and connect up to the property. So the applicant is John David from D&H Properties because he does own that property up there. The agent, again, is Dewberry, Preble Rish, and we have Chris Short here if you have any questions for him. West of Deer Point Elementary. Land use, traditional neighbourhood development, approximately 18 acres in size, and as I just said, it's the entrance road from County Road 2321 into the villages at Mills Bayou property, and really for access to the park. So they were going to put this road in eventually, but because of the park and the park being donated to the city, they're going ahead and they're asking if they can have a development order to proceed with that road earlier than they were going to, so that people can access the park. This is the location of the property here. So where those two red arrows are coming down, just to the right, that's Deer Point Elementary. That first little arrow on the right-hand side is where you would come in, which is just a bit further on from the school where there is an entrance road right now, and then it kind of bends around to where that thicker red arrow is and then goes on down. It kind of follows a track down towards that easternmost tip of the park, and that's the shape of the road. That's the engineering site plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
As I understand this, this will, for all intents and purposes, will be the initial access road to the park. They're coming
Yes.
where there was already a gate or some configuration kind of to the northwest of the elementary school.
Yes, that's correct.
About a half a mile or so before you get to Deer Point Dam. Yeah.
Yes.
This was also unanimously approved by the Planning
Yes.
Commission.
Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker. Two questions. Is this part of the trust money that's going to be used for doing this infrastructure for this road? Because it's the entrance to the park.
The developer's paying for it.
Developer? Okay. Second question, the part coming down there, along there, does that infringe upon the restricted area that was set aside a long time ago, that's outside of the 950 acres? Does any of that get in there? Because I saw one of the red lines look like it was in that property.
No, I'm sure.
You remember
You
our
want to
meeting
speak to that?
at South Powell when we discussed that?
I'm sure it's all on the property. We wouldn't approve it otherwise.
The previous...
It's on D&H property. I mean, the arrows may have not been positioned very well, but I was just trying to give people an idea of where the road was going to be.
So the drawing was just a little off from what he was, okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you. Okay, then this public hearing is closed at 6:36 Central Time, and we move to the last public hearing of the meeting. The development order application, Grand South Senior Living, DO 16-3, Highway 77, just north of Mosley Drive. And again, this will be a quasi-judicial hearing with no vote until item 27.
And Mayor, may I? Item number 9 is a public hearing, or excuse me, quasi-judicial hearing of the City of Lynn Haven. If anybody plans on presenting any testimony before the board, please go ahead and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. And if any board members had any ex parte communications with the developer or the applicant, please go ahead and disclose that on the record.
I have had no communication.
I have had none.
I've had none. And none.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is also a development order application, and this is for a project which is proposed to be located on Highway 77. The project name is Grand South Assisted Living and Memory Care. The applicant is William Shaw, or Bill and Lisa Shaw, who are the current owners of that property, but the developer will be buying it. The agent is Panhandle, Jeff Peterman, Panhandle Engineering, but we have Chris Forehand here tonight, if you have any questions. And the location is the east side of Highway 77, north of Mosley Drive. The land use is commercial, and it's approximately 5 acres in size, the parcel. And what is being proposed is a 77-bed assisted living and memory care facility. And some of those are going to be for couples, which I think is really good. It's not all just for individual, single people, so couples will be able to go in there. Let me see if I can get the next slide. So this is the location along Highway 77. There it is, just there in the red box. The portion to the east, where you see all the trees there on the east, that's a conservation easement. So that's been carved out, and that's remaining as a conservation easement. This is the site plan, which has been thoroughly reviewed, and we know for sure that no other adjacent properties are going to be impacted by the stormwater which comes off. These are some renderings which I was sent, which again the detail is kind of small, but if anybody's interested, they're welcome to come and visit me in my office, and I'll be happy to show these to them. And this is kind of how the facade is proposed to be. So it's not going to be just a single kind of flat roof building. This is in the corridor overlay. So they do have extra standards that they have to meet. But even without that, they have done one of these somewhere else, and they want a multi-level look to it, you know, different rooftop heights and that kind of thing to make it, to break it up so it doesn't look like just one big wall building. Thank you.
Are there questions from the board?
Yeah, is the engineer for the project here?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like
we have representation from Panhandle. Jeff Peterman was the one who submitted it, but we have Chris Forehand here if you would like to ask him some questions.
I have some questions to ask.
Mr. Slanino raised his hand over there.
Mr. Slanino's here too. Okay.
You don't get it.
Jim, not Mr.
Take advantage while he's sworn in.
Whatever. What was your
Mr.
question, sir?
Selena, is this project one in which when the seniors go there, are they going to have individual rooms, and are they going to have kitchens in there, or I mean just What kind of assisted living are we talking
Well,
about?
the assisted living, they're all defined by the state. The assisted living is different than memory care. Assisted living does have sort of more centralized services, kitchens and all, but there are independent rooms, and as Amanda mentioned, there's 77 beds in 70 rooms. So a few of the rooms are set up for couples. Assisted living doesn't require a nurse to be in attendance. It's just a sort of a group home for elderly people. They tend to have a van that brings them to the mall, brings them to different places. Parking is limited, things like that. The memory care, which is the one on the right that has the internal courtyard, is obviously for those type of purposes that need a little more attention. You can probably find, based on my experience in the last 6 months, there's been memory care studies done throughout Bay County, and we are very deficient. This company here has got one in Tallahassee right now, Elder Care, and they're just starting one right now in Dothan. So they're an experienced firm.
Is the assisted living part of it going to be somewhat like the Matheson?
No, Matheson's a nursing home. It'll be more like Beehive that you approved not too long ago. It's not at the level of a nursing home.
Okay.
No, it's just. But the demographics of Lynn Haven, with our residential background and things like that, is just a natural progression that we have starter homes, mid homes, bigger homes when you get bigger, and then you get to move to smaller homes. But these are high quality.
Yeah. Well, I'm generally familiar. The need continues to grow in Bay County for this type of facility. We're behind the cycle already on having adequate
probably
facilities
3 or
like
4
this.
more being tentatively proposed this side of Hathaway Bridge right now, and 1 or 2 spots in Lynn Haven are being considered.
Here. I just have one quick question. Jim, have we talked with the neighbors on either side yet? I mean, I know the signs
Well,
there.
Bill Shaw owns 3 sides. There's really only 3 sides because of the highway.
Right.
But Bill Shaw owns the other 2 sides.
Right. I was talking about like the church and then
Pentecostal church has a nice wooded buffer.
Oh, okay.
No, we have not talked to them, but
Okay,
I
I'm just
think that
curious.
it would be consistent. This is a low impact, low traffic, upscale, if you will, quality senior living.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board or comments? Are there any questions from the public for the engineer while he's here? Any comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I just add, because I keep forgetting to let you know, that the Planning Commission did vote on this unanimously. They said yes.
Thank you very much. This public hearing is now over at 6:43, and we'll move right into our regular agenda now, starting with the mayor's report. And the first thing I'd like to do is to read a proclamation for National Suicide Prevention Week. Whereas Bay County has the second highest rate of suicide per 100,000 in Northwest Florida, following closely behind Holmes County, and whereas from 1999 through 2014, the suicide rate in the United States increased 24%, whereas 2,892 Floridians lost their lives to suicide in 2013 at an average of 8 people per day, and suicide is the leading cause of death amongst military personnel, and that is 23 per day, by the way. And whereas in the United States, we lose a person to suicide every 13 minutes. And whereas suicides can be prevented through early identification and effective care for mental, physical, and substance abuse disorders, connecting individuals and communities to available resources, and improving and increasing training resources. And whereas organizations such as the American Association of Suicidology, Mental Health First Aid, the Florida Department of Health, Florida Suicide Prevention Resource, Emerald Coast Behavioral Hospital, Life Management Center of Northwest Florida, and Suicide Prevention Awareness Response and Education of Northwest Florida, SPARE, are dedicated to reducing the frequency of suicide attempts and deaths and the pain of survivors affected through the educational programs, research projects, intervention services, and bereavement services. And whereas increased awareness, education, and commitment to action in our community are keys to help eliminate these tragedies. Now therefore, I, Margot Deal Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby declare September 5th through 11th, 2016 as Suicide Prevention Week throughout the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, and encourage all citizens to join me in increasing awareness and understanding of suicide, and to let those affected know there are resources and organizations available to help. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida to be affixed this 9th day of September in the year 2016. Just wanted to mention that the reason this is being done after the week is over, SPARE did have their suicide prevention annual walk at Porter Park with a large number of attendees. I did get to walk with them and read the proclamation for them, and it was a really, really touching event, and it was very well put together. And so at this time, if I could have a motion to accept this proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And could we have a vote, Mr. Schubert, please?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the proclamation will be signed and put into effect. At this time, item B, there is a Sharon Sheffield Park grant presentation. I'd like to thank you for sitting patiently through the public hearings until we got to this part of the program. Thank you so much. We have representatives from DEP to make this presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming to the meeting, and we appreciate that very much. And I would also like to take this opportunity to recognize Linda Lucanti, who works very diligently on these grant applications, and who has done so for many years. So, Linda, could you just stand and let us recognize you?
Speech,
Thank you so
speech.
much. Thank you. The only other things I would add to the mayor's report, because we're running long, I've had several opportunities to speak and be part of several great events. Speaking to the North Side Rotary Club, I got to take part in the Bay Haven North Bay Haven SGA installation this week and talk with them about government. They're very interested in perhaps forming some sort of youth council, which is part of League of Cities. So that would be interesting, and they're thinking about starting to attend our meetings. And then I wanted to also ask Maria Stout-Tate if she would stand and let us give her a round of applause for the lovely 9/11 ceremony that took place last week. She did that on very short notice. And the rest of the Leisure Services Department as well, but it was so tastefully done, it was so well put together, and I think the community really, really appreciated it. So that's all that I have. Commissioner Shad, would you like to make a report?
Like most of us, this past week has been a lot of celebrations going on. Not celebrating what happened on 9/11, but remembrances, a celebration of remembrances and support for the first responders. We did have ours here in the park, which was very, very good. I also participated in several relatively smaller ones elsewhere. And everybody, I think it's great that everybody that I've talked to in all the cities seem to take this to heart now and are dedicated to remembering what happened. And you know, all too often as time goes on, we forget. And unless there is a special effort made, and unless we take the initiative to create some of these things, 10 years from now, if you don't do anything, nobody's going to remember what 9/11 was or what happened on it. So I'd just like to thank not only our city, our staff, but all the communities and the people in it for showing the support and the remembrance of 9/11. I'd also like to remind you that this week, in about 2 weeks' time, the Warriors Retreat will start to happen again. And Lynn Pope was on TV today announcing it. I think the Forest Park Methodist Church is going to be the home of the ceremony. So that is a very heart-wrenching experience to go and see these veterans and their wives when they come here. And you see them walk down the aisle. They're always, the ceremony is always held at a church. And you see them walk down the aisle and stand in front of the congregation and the visitors that are there. And you see the physical condition that most of them are in and what they have suffered in defending our rights so that we have the privileges that we do. And the people that enjoy it the most and get the most out of it are the veterans themselves and their families, because they are so appreciative that there is a community that responds and respects what they have done, the sacrifices they have made, and are willing to say thank you and give them something. Many of these veterans, in particular the ones that came home in the Vietnam War, they were treated miserably. And they're so grateful that we have a community. When I say we, not just Lynn Haven, I'm talking about Bay County, have a community that respects and welcomes these people. And believe me, a lot of them, they want to move here, and some of them do. So if you have an opportunity to participate in it, it's just standing by the road waving the flag when they come by, or going down to the Forest Park Methodist Church and sitting in on the ceremony where they're recognized, do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yeah, I'll briefly just thank Maria again for that event. I believe the adjective I heard used was tasteful, and that was an appropriate adjective. I think, I hope that everyone who is a first responder within the city of Lynn Haven understands there's just a genuine reverence on the part of this commission for what they do for us. We get very, very positive comments out in the community about our first responders, and not just the first responders. I mean, heck, our public works guys that are on time all the time picking up stuff, and I think it was a well done event, especially given the timing and the solemnness of the day that was to follow there a couple of days later. So thank you again. I think it was well received, and again, there was a lot of positive comment that I've gotten back from that being done. So thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Even though I was out of town Friday with my son, I have heard nothing but good things about the ceremony. And, we just have a great staff, from police, fire, public works, folks in City Hall, just everybody that makes up this community. And I just want to say thank you for the job that you do. Your work does not go unnoticed. There are people out in the community that really appreciate the job that you do as well. And so I just want to publicly thank all of you for representing Lynn Haven and being very professional in doing so. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the ceremony. And Mayor, you did a really good job emceeing and everything that you did. Your speech was excellent, and I really was proud to be a part of that. Also, we attended the Ride for Ray. It was his bicycle, a cyclist, and man, it just goes to show our community as a whole. We had, I think, over 200 cyclists come out, and it was pretty sobering as well, and also speaks really well to our city and to the PD. They put that together very quickly and did just an outstanding job. And can't say enough good. We even had to change the route just a little bit last minute, had some changes there, but everybody did a great job, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. The city manager's report?
Just briefly, there's nothing else to say. The great job the staff did. Appreciate you guys too. I wanted to just mention Mosley Drive was done. The PD did an excellent job for the 2, maybe 3 days that we only had one-way traffic during school. That project was delayed for a week because of the 9-10 days of rain we had, but I think it worked out well. So contractor's done with that one. Now we're over here just east of City Hall, and we should be done with that in the next 2 weeks as well.
Thank you. City Attorney's report.
Yes, ma'am. Just a small administrative matter. I look and see that the Lynn Haven Bayou Park Amendment is on the consent agenda, and that ordinance has not been read yet. So if we could read 1021 before we take up the consent agenda.
1021.
1021.
An ordinance of the City Commission for the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the adopted comprehensive plan, providing for purpose and intent, providing for a title, amending the future land use map from traditional neighborhood development to recreation/open space for a parcel of land located south of McKithen's Bayou on the west side of County Road 2321, which is approximately 97.8 acres within the city, as more accurately described within the body of the ordinance, providing for severability, providing for a copy on file, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to be reading several items which are on the consent agenda. I will read all the items at one time and then ask for a motion to accept all of them, a second for that motion, and then there will be time for the board to ask questions about any of the items, and then I will also give opportunity for the public to ask questions about any of the items. So the consent agenda is item number 14, the minutes from the August 9th, 2016 regular meeting. Item 15, approve amendment to FDOT traffic signal maintenance and compensation agreement. Item 16, approve the interlocal participation agreement with the Bi-Board National Purchasing Cooperative. Item number 17, approve renewal number 2 to sports uniform contract with Almega Sports. Item number 18, approve the task order with Panhandle Engineering for reuse system improvements in the amount of $250,000. Item number 19, approve the task order with Panhandle Engineering for water system improvements in the amount of $287,500. Item number 20, approve appointments to the Citizens Advisory Task Force. Item number 21, approve Baseball Tomorrow Fund Grant application for ball field netting. Item number 22, the approval of Mosley High School homecoming parade route. Item number 23, second and final reading of Ordinance 1021, the Comprehensive Plan Amendment Large-Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment LSA 16-1, Lynn Haven Bayou Park and Preserve. And item 24, second and final reading of Ordinance 1023, Amendment to the Unified Land Development Code Section 4.03.00, Section 10.01.00, and Section 10.03.00. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Mayor, if I could, and this is my issue here, the 23 and 24 were intended to be old business. I know the city attorney, I think.
Oh, I got that confused. I'm sorry. Yeah.
On the consent agenda.
Oh.
I missed the old business heading as well. Okay. We have a 3-page agenda. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so the consent agenda includes only through item number 22, approval of Mosley High School homecoming parade route. So with that change, may I have a first motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
And a second to approve the 22 and the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on any of these items from the members of the board? Any questions or comments from the public on any of these items? Okay, thank you. There appears to be no questions from anyone, so Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the consent agenda is approved. And now we move to old business. Item 23 is the second and final reading of Ordinance 1021, the Comprehensive Plan Amendment, Large-Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment, LSA 16-1, Lynn Haven Bayou Park and Preserve. So if we could have a reading.
It's already been
We
read.
just read that again.
Vote. Yes, ma'am.
At this time, could I have a motion and a second for item number
Also
20?
move.
Is there a second? Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? There is none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So that ordinance is passed.
Yes, ma'am.
We've already had the reading of Ordinance 1023, so is there a motion for acceptance?
I'll move approval.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments from the board, from the public? Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so that has passed as well. Moving quickly to new business, item number 25, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the preliminary plat application for Shoreline Village Phase 1C of the Villages of Mill Bayou PB 2016-1. Is there a presentation for this one? Further presentation or questions?
We had it. She
Right.
did it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any further questions from the board about the presentation? None. Are there any questions from the public? Is there a motion for acceptance
I'll move approval.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the motion passes. Moving to item number 26, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the development order application for the Mill Bayou North Entrance Road, DO 16-2. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion from the board, from the public? Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So that is passed as well. Moving to item number 27, the discussion and possible action regarding approval of the development order application for Grand South Senior Living DO-16-3. Is there a motion that we accept?
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. We've already asked for discussion and questions. Are there any further questions or discussion? Okay, at this time, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So this passes as well. Item number 28 is Resolution 2016-09-661, the sale of 708 Iowa Avenue. Are there any questions or discussion? It has already been read?
No, it needs to be.
I thought we had already, okay. Wow. Okay. Would you please read this resolution?
Resolution number 2016-09-661, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, authorizing the sale of real property, delegating final negotiations with interested parties to the city manager subject to certain parameters, authorizing the mayor to execute the contract and closing documents, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a motion for acceptance
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion from the board regarding this resolution? Any questions or discussion from the public? Yes, Mrs. Walker.
Has it sold or is it up for sale? Has it already sold the property?
My understanding is it's not finalized.
Right. This would authorize myself and the mayor to execute. There was a sealed bid process. For the property, there were 3 bids, and this was the highest bid.
Did that answer your question, Mrs. Walker? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, at this time, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so that resolution has passed. Item 29 is discussion and possible action regarding construction of a splash park. And I just wanted to read, it was in the board packet. This was something that I brought up at a workshop not too long ago. And what I'm asking for tonight is not detailed plans for a splash park, but just permission from the board. What I would like to do is to start a fundraising project. It would be completely privately funded with no taxpayer dollars involved in the construction. A splash park at Kensall Park, adjacent to the playground equipment that's already there. What I brought up at the workshop that we had before, I know there was discussion in the past about a possible splash park at the Leisure Services Sports Complex, which, you know, there still could be that in the future. But what I was hoping and what I have received tremendous support for through a Facebook posting of a splash park and this proposal, there have been over 4,000 views now of the video on the Facebook page. There have been hundreds of public comments of support. There's already been pledges of people who would be willing to support it financially. So what I'm asking of the board tonight, and I can read through what I wrote, is just permission to, and I wanted to add one more time why I'm so, I feel so good about the thought of putting it in the CRA area over in the Kensall Park, because children in the old part of Lynn Haven could ride their bicycles there, they could walk there, and we have literally hundreds of children in Lynn Haven. If you look at our elementary school rolls, the free and reduced lunches, we have over 60% in that category, which means they're economically deprived, and they don't all have people to drive them to softball games or the sports complex, and so many of them are just at home. And this would be something they could do after school. The Lynn Haven teachers have sent me all kinds of comments about how excited they would be about having it in that proximity. So what I'm asking for tonight is just a proposal. This park would cost, depending on how small or large we wanted to make it, from $65,000 at a very small end to $500,000 at something that would just be over the top. So I'm proposing that if I could get, and I would really like this to be my project. I wanted to do this as something, a project of mine to give back to the community, and I would, pledge to the commission that I would work very hard and would love to have your help as well if you want to join in raising these funds. All I'm asking tonight is just a motion that you give me permission to start raising the funds and permission to place it at Kensall Park once the funds are raised. At the point that we would have $250,000, at that point, I would propose that we handle it much like we did the Sheffield Park, where we had public hearings and workshops, and the public could come in and talk about what they would like to see as a theme. I would like to propose, based on hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of comments back to me on Facebook from the students and from people in the community who would like to see it called the Ray Wishart Splash Park at Kensall Park, because of his love for children, his 40 years of dedication to children in Lynn Haven and our community, and his love for the Bay. So those are all the thoughts. And once the splash park is constructed, it would belong to the city of Lynn Haven. And of course, the city at that point would be responsible for the operation and maintenance of the splash park. But if we followed studies that have been made all across the southeast, we would charge minimal amounts for people to use it, $2 or $3 to come, or they could have a season pass. We can charge to have parties, birthday parties, or events. So these are just thoughts. And if anyone feels that they could give a motion to allow me to start the fundraising, the city attorney and I have spoken, and he would be willing to handle the to help handle the nuts and bolts. He feels that the account should be. I had proposed having an account at one of the banks in the city, and also a GoFundMe on Facebook. The city attorney feels that for my protection, that it should be a city account, and it would be designated just for the Mayor's Splash Park fundraising. So I think that's great, and he would help me with those nuts and bolts. So anyway, with that, if you have questions or comments, or if someone on the board would be willing to make a motion, I would be really happy.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that this be tabled until we have a workshop so that all the commissioners have an opportunity to discuss this in depth. This is the first time we've seen the details on it. I have a jillion and one questions. I'm sure some of the other commissioners do. It's not that I am against the splash park. I was for the splash park across the street. I'm still in favor of a splash park. But before I vote approval on anything, I want a lot of questions answered.
Okay, and I appreciate that,
and that isn't in the form of a motion. That's a privilege motion.
That's a what?
A privilege motion.
Okay.
In other words,
That
in
you would
essence,
make a
I made the
motion
motion that we table it. We have to vote on it.
Okay. I don't know what I would like to just say one other thing is I think the timeliness of it is very important. People are very excited about it, and I would hate to see that the excitement and people are eager to get started, and to table it, it just takes the air. And all we're asking for is just permission to start funding, not details or any, just permission for funding.
I can't support it.
I'll second his motion. I've got some searching I want to do.
Okay, well, I guess we would table it until the next meeting. Is that what we would do, or we need more time? Or
If you want to have a special workshop on it, I'm agreeable to that.
Okay, I appreciate that very much.
Could we?
Well, I mean, if we're going to have a workshop, I'd like to do it before the next commission meeting so that everybody have an opportunity to go through this.
Okay, I agree. Maybe the city manager, do you have a time that we could get together and decide, or?
Just as a reminder, the next city commission meeting is a week from today on the 19th, so I imagine you probably want this at sometime after 5, or?
Well, isn't it 5:01 is by the state statute our next meeting has to be?
Right, but I was thinking if you wanted more public participation, maybe we could do it a different day before then, at 6 or 5.
So this is something that just can't wait until our October meeting?
Well, it can certainly wait, but again, all that I'm asking for is not, anything in detail. I'm just asking for permission in the name of the city to start a fundraising project for a splash park. I mean, we can workshop it. I mean, it's in my proposal that I think we should have lots of workshops. It's just, it's just permission to start a fundraising campaign for something for our children. And, I don't see the...
Then let me ask this question. I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize for that. If this is money that's going into a city's account, why do we have to vote on it? I mean, why do we have to take any action? Does that make any kind of sense? I mean, we've never done this before, so I can't really digest this. I'm not
because it's
saying
private funds.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm against
I
it,
think
but there's some other things
Right. I mean, the mayor has asked for permission to raise funds in the name of the city of Lynn Haven, I believe. And
that's the deal.
I think that it's appropriate for that to come to the commission.
Okay. Then that's the difference.
Yeah.
And that's, Mayor, if I may, that's one of the questions I have. It just, I really admire the fundraising part of it, but I get a little nervous when we're doing it in the name of the city. And I would like to, I didn't have a chance to call you on it, but I don't know how that works out as far as liability to the city, or, I mean, has that ever been done? I don't know that the city is in a position to hold fundraisers.
It's been done not to interrupt, but it's been done at Panama City Beach. Their original playground at Frank Brown Park was a privately funded, fundraised park. I was part of it.
But it wasn't.
But it became the property of the city after. Right. That's why I'm asking for your blessing, your permission, because even though I'm willing to get out and do the work and find this money, and if you think about it, it would only have to be 250 people with a $1,000 check will bring this park for our children. And I've got people that are excited about it. 500 people with a $500 check. You know, it can happen quickly, people are excited. Our children don't have anything like the other cities have. And I just don't understand why it would have to be workshopped just to give me permission to start fundraising. That's all I'm asking.
I guess, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Well, I guess there's a little confusion there on my part then, because you've outlined everything that you would like to see happen with the funds that are raised. I would need a little more legwork on that as far as the placement of the splash park. If it's just to approve you to start raising the funds and then it comes back to the commission or it gets workshopped plus public input on where it's placed and what it's named, you know, that's different. I'm still a little nervous about raising the funds on behalf of the city. I didn't know that. I've never seen that done before. I've always seen private entities form a 501c3. They raise the funds, then they come before the city, and then they say, hey, this is what we want to do with the funds. I've never seen a municipality actually raise the funds.
It has been done. It might just be that there's never been anyone on the board here who was willing to volunteer to get out and raise $250,000. Right. You know, that could be the reason you haven't seen it.
Well, I'm not talking about here. Like I said, and I wanted to get legal input on that. Sounds like you have, and I just got behind on reaching out to Rob and asking that particular question.
Well, I think this probably just is not going anyplace today, so I would, you know, graciously defer to Mr. Shadd's request for a, you know, workshop. If y'all are willing to do a workshop, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But I'll keep my thoughts to myself about it, but I mean, if you have somebody on your board that's willing to get out and do the work for the children, I just don't understand why I can't just get a go-ahead to raise money. That's what I don't understand.
With all due respect, I love children too. I've spent 23 years in Bay District schools educating children, so I understand children, and we all understand children. But we also have a responsibility as the elected officials to look at everything to make sure that we're in compliance not only with state law and federal, but with our jobs as city commissioners. So, I mean, I respectfully agree for the children, but as adults, we've got to look at everything that takes place here.
My question, I guess, maybe this will go to the attorney for this question. If we, in essence, condone or authorize the fundraising efforts of someone, the mayor or whomever, as a sitting commission, what liability do we bring upon ourselves if the project does not end up happening? I mean, we then have to return money to the donors, and who's keeping track of all of that? Does that fall to our staff, or does it fall to the persons or whomever are raising the money? I'm concerned that if so we don't even have a number of what we want to do or build, but whatever that number is, if we fall short of it, then
250,000 was the number.
But I mean, we don't have that engineered, we don't have it spec'd out or anything. That's a pretty speculative number. But if we raise 180, then are we going to have to pony up the other 70 out of a commitment to do the project, or do we start writing checks back to the donors?
Well,
whether they're $5 checks or $500 checks.
There are other prices of parks besides 250. If you had 180, we could scale back if that's all we had. There's from 65 to 500. 250, based on a study across the southeast, was a number that seemed viable and seemed doable for a city our size. But
I kind of like, these are questions that I'd like to have some more detailed answers to. What are we opening ourselves up to, or are we opening ourselves up to something? I don't know. I can't conclusively say yes or no without getting someone's opinion. Whether we task city manager or staff with bringing us some viable numbers, we can discuss. I mean, there's a lot of things out here. Locations, numbers.
Is there objection to the Kensaw Park from anyone? I mean, is that someplace you wouldn't want?
Well, we don't know. I mean, we've not had an opportunity to discuss a location.
Well,
then that's why we need the workshop. I don't think we need to sit here and waste our time tonight.
I'm sorry that you think it's a waste of time.
getting a workshop together where we can sit down more informally and talk about it.
But just one thing about the location, we're always saying that, the kids could ride their bikes to Kensaw Park. What about the child that lives on Colorado Avenue?
Well, we have a crosswalk here that they could still get there. If the child's on Colorado and he doesn't have a parent who can drive him, he's still stuck on Colorado with nowhere to go.
That's vice versa, even on the west side of town. I'm just throwing these things out because I want to be equitable for everybody.
I understand.
So,
Kensaw Park has lots of room for parking. It already has a beautiful little playground. It has plenty of room for the splash park. There's not room at Kane Griffin, which would be the closest other park besides the leisure services. I did put quite a bit of research in this, and I have been monitoring the voice of the Lynn Haven citizens. I have over 4,000 views and approvals of that park on just an example.
I understand about Facebook, and by the time we get through this meeting, something else will be out there on Facebook. But
this is not like a conversation on Facebook. It was a poll of sorts from me. Is this what you would like as the community? But, I'm looking here. I see 4 of you who've been here for many, many, many years, and I don't know that any of you ever made a proposal like this. And because this is something different, I just fail to understand.
It's not that
we
made a proposal. We actually did. We said we were going to put a splash park in Sheffield Park, but then we said no, we're not going to put it in Sheffield Park. So, it's not that we 4 sitting here haven't had any ideas. We can think.
I didn't say that you didn't have ideas. I said you've not ever volunteered to get out and do the fundraising.
The insinuation is there, though, Mayor.
Okay, I know the hour is late and people are tired and we're almost not done. So if someone would make a motion for a workshop, I think Mr. Shad already did. If there's a second for that, I appreciate it.
There's already been a motion and a second.
Motion, second.
And would that date be, is there a date that would be satisfactory? Would the October 11th commission meeting, if we had a workshop before that, would that be satisfactory to the board?
No problem.
Or sooner, that makes a difference to me.
Yeah, pretty flexible.
You want to have it before then?
I think it's important to have it on a regular commission night so that the public could attend and have, so they would be expecting it. It wouldn't be on a strange date. Is October 11th agreeable with everyone? Commissioner Friend, is October 11th
yes,
agreeable to you? Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Could we include October 11th in the motion, Commissioner Shad?
We got this in. No, I'd rather have the 10th if we can do it on the 10th.
That's the Monday before?
Yeah.
Okay, the city manager is saying maybe a week from today on the 19th. Is that too soon or is that okay?
I think it's too soon.
Okay, then back to the October commission meeting the day before, the Monday would be the workshop, the 10th?
Sure.
Okay, any discussion or comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Brad, John, 210 Lakeview Terrace. I think the City Commission is correct that Mayor Anderson does need their permission to take action like she proposes, but Margot Anderson does not. Margot Anderson can do whatever she wants to.
I appreciate the comment, but since I'm asking to put it on city property, then that's where we are. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
I apologize, Mayor. You saying October 10th is a holiday?
Oh, it is a holiday. Thank you, Charlene. So then the second October commission meeting.
Sure.
10th.
24th.
Okay, Mr. Shad, Commissioner Shad, do you object to changing your motion to the 24th then instead of the 10th? Since the 10th is a holiday.
24th?
October 24th.
The date is not important to me. It's the fact we need to have.
Okay, but we need to have it approved before we have a workshop.
Okay.
So October the 24th is good with everybody? That would be the second commission meeting the Monday before?
That's fine.
Okay, I guess we're good. Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Mayor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. And then moving to the Bay Economic Development Alliance update. Is there a staff report or?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Rebecca Harden.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the board. My name is Becca Harden, and I'm the president of the Bay Economic Development Alliance. With me tonight is Sandy Sims. She's the general manager of Gulf Power. She's also a secretary and officer of the board of the EDA. I want to start my comments by thanking you for all your support. I will tell you that we've had a very busy year. Hopefully you've read about some of the successes in the newspaper that we've had and working very closely with the community leadership. We've had several aviation-related projects looking at the airport very near here. We're optimistic that hopefully one that we've been working on will be able to push forward to announcement by the 1st of October. So please keep your ears open for that announcement. We've also worked a lot of projects with the port that's looking at property at the Intermodal Distribution Center on Highway 231. And I'm very proud to say that we've had substantial project activity here in Lynn Haven. We work very closely with City Manager Joel Schubert and the CRA Director Ben Janke. And we have been showcasing the properties in the industrial park. And I'm happy to say that we have been working with every major manufacturer that you have here in Lynn Haven. Due to confidentiality, we're not able to talk in detail about some of the projects that we've been working on, but I can say that we recently completed a project with Jensen USA in which they created 25 jobs at their local facility. Again, working very closely with your team, we were able to bring the state and the county to the table, and we were able to offer them an incentive package of $75,000 to help create those 25 jobs. And we're working similar projects with some of your other local manufacturers. We have also been able to work very closely with your team in providing feedback from prospects that we work with and how to do business in Lynn Haven. There were some concerns that arose with some of our prospects that had concern about the impact fees. I know your team brought that issue to you, and thank you for your leadership in addressing that. I'm very confident that hopefully two of the projects that we've been working on will now go forward because that impact fee issue has been addressed. A project that we've just recently announced is a project in the city of Panama City, Jellyfish Health. And we were able to announce 100 new jobs with an entrepreneurial company. What does that mean for Lynn Haven? Those employees make an average of $70,000 a year. And they'll be looking to buy houses in some of these developments that you all approved. So, as we help grow commerce and grow jobs in Bay County, we work very closely with you and your team in making sure that Lynn Haven is a key part of what we do. Finally, I'll just bring your attention, on June 16th, we sent you a letter asking you to renew your commitment to the Bay County Economic Development Alliance. We have a formula that was created by the elected officials in the municipalities that are part of our alliance, and we, in our letter, have based our request on the 2014 census data. So as you complete your budgeting process, we'll just ask you to consider this request that we sent you on June 16th, and thank you, as always, for your continuous support of the Economic Development Alliance.
Thank you. Rebecca Harden she works very hard for our community and for Lynn Haven. We appreciate your sitting through this very long meeting tonight and staying to the bitter end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, we're at item number 31, which is public commentary. Is there anyone who had something they'd like to address the commission? Sir, I believe you long ago did.
My name's Wayne Pate. 28 years ago, my wife and I bought land, built a house here. And the reason that I'm here tonight is because I understand that y'all recently passed a rate increase on the water, sewer, garbage pickups. The other day I was out doing my yard work when the garbage truck came by, the household trash truck. The employee got off the truck and come over to where I was working on my yard and handed me the pink slip. He said, not only did they vote a rate increase, they're changing the policy. Up to now, you've been able to put a box next to your trash can. And he pointed out I'll read it. Article 7, Item 7 on here, loose items placed at the curb. We only service city-owned containers. A special collection can be arranged at an extra fee. So that's a second whammy to us. I'm retired on a fixed income, and for 28 years, we've been able to put boxes next to the garbage can because you had 3 men on a truck. Now it's down to 1 man. I appreciate y'all saving money by buying these trucks. But y'all are saving 2 employees per truck for their benefits, their salaries, and etc. What I'd like for you to do is to let a senior citizen, a lot of them's on fixed income like I am, be able to contact the Public Works and get a second trash can so we can put our boxes. My kids are grown, they're out of state, they send us packages. My wife's doing a lot of extra online ordering to keep from getting out in the traffic. And if y'all would, you could, on a senior citizen, give them a second trash can so they can tear up their boxes and put the trash in the city-owned container, which wouldn't take that much longer for the employee to pull up 2 or 3 feet and dump a second container. And I'm asking y'all to make a motion or change it so that a senior citizen can just call down there and get a second trash can at no extra charge. And if you do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Anybody from the board want to address that? Or
Just in general, I think, I certainly sympathize with what you're saying. As you probably know, the second can.
Sorry about here, they quit working.
As you probably know, they probably told you there's a second can available, but there is a charge. It's like $4 and something cents a month. What I would propose, if it was okay with the commission, is I've also taken a look. I've had some disabled vets contact me as well with the same plight. So I'd like to maybe consider maybe a discounted rate or something for a second can for those that are elderly, and then also especially our disabled vets or those that are disabled, because that's the number one complaint. I think most people like yourself are actually appreciative because that, like you said, it's substantial savings, that model of having 1 driver, and we do, just for clarification, not as a routine. They will get out of the truck, especially during holidays, Christmas, etc. They'll get out of the truck and pick those things up themselves, but routinely, if there's something there every week, every other week, it's policy that they don't. But I would like to maybe address this in a policy and bring it back to the commission.
Yeah, I would say we would just task you and your staff to bring us back some suggestions, and especially some sort of way for you to take an application or vet the individual so that people don't take advantage of it. And that's something we would have to look into. But I think that our staff could probably work on that.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mr. Pate.
I certainly appreciate the way that was presented as well.
Mr. Miller?
Leon Miller, 1508 Mississippi Avenue. A few months ago, I brought up the idea about taking the pavilion down at Kane Griffin Park and developing it into some type of historical thing to memorize some of the people that helped establish Lynn Haven, because there used to be a school there, Morris Green School, that sits on that property down there. And it seemed like to me that this has been pushed against the back burner about doing something for this pavilion down there at King Griffin Park. And if we fix it up, we're talking about bringing attraction towards Lynn Haven, people from the beach that can come and look at and read this information about Lynn Haven and the citizens who helped make Lynn Haven grow over the years' time. I like to say, let's start looking at that and say, buy a brick program and develop this pavilion down at Kane Griffin Park.
Mr. Miller, are you like wanting a wall with
I don't know. I hadn't made no plans. I just talked. I figured a legal service department or someone where we would sit down and come up with a plan.
They did. We researched the bricks, the name on the bricks, and I think this is something. I'm not a big fan of workshops either, but I think we'd have to workshop that. It appeared to be Mrs. Stout Tate did a lot of research. It appeared to be cost prohibitive, but she's still researching it. I mean, you can go and, I was in Tallahassee this weekend, walking by Doak Campbell Stadium, and they have just a ton of pavers out there with names etched. I think they probably paid a lot more than what we're thinking out there. Those are pretty hefty donors, but I will say that, we're not forgetting about King Griffin Park. Part of that ditch out there, part of the resurfacing, that sign is going to be redone this year. There's landscaping out there. Ben, can you speak to anything else? I know it's in the budget. We have specific items we're doing out there. That park is the next park, one of the next parks, along with Kensaw, slated for a total rehab where we would take a look at it in total. But no, we haven't forgotten about it. I can touch base with Maria. Budget season is kind of busy, but she did get a lot of figures. I spoke to her about it briefly, not briefly, about a month ago. But how would you like to sit in on a meeting with us? And we can present to you exactly what she's done so far, and maybe pick your brain a little bit exactly what you're thinking, and maybe meet on site.
Have we contacted the Lynn Haven Historical Society? They've got a lot of information.
I mean, there's been discussion about what names would be out there, et cetera, and that's the kind of decision that I don't think city staff should make in a vacuum. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that need to be vetted in a workshop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like we have a historian standing right there.
No. Okay, the other thing is, I know it's been very difficult for maintenance department here. But when we have these hard rains before, the ditches are filled with grass. I know it's difficult to keep all the ditches cut, but when we have these heavy rains, water begin to back up because it can't go anywhere. The grass is too tall in the ditches. And I think if we can make a little more effort with the people who in front of the house or something to keep the ditches clean so the water can move and won't stand in the driveway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Yes.
Bob Schultz, 509 Pennsylvania Avenue. First, two things. First of all, acoustics in this room. I was sitting back row, kind of a guest. Church, you sit in the front row. But the lady came up here, I didn't hear a word she said, and I'm not that hard of hearing. You guys, have you had any complaints about the acoustics of this building? You're the only one who shakes your head. You guys, I guess, hear okay? You guys are elected officials. You're supposed to answer questions.
Well, we have had some issues, but the city manager has done everything that he can, I believe, in order to rectify those issues.
Was it just the one person? I mean, we could have it looked at again. I mean, we've had 2 independent sound companies come in here.
Okay.
I don't know if she didn't speak into the mic. I mean, there was one that spoke and nearly shattered eardrums, but I mean, we can take a look at it.
Okay, but the mayor said there's problems. The rest of you just kept looking at me.
I just said I've had complaints from people that they had trouble hearing Mr. Schultz, is what I said.
Second question, do you guys know the amount of firemen that are leaving almost as quick as you hire them? You're losing money. They get on, just like I worked for the state. People came on, they were there a few months, and they left for better paying jobs. Are you guys aware of it? And are you aware that the salary is a problem? You guys look at me, and I want an answer.
Yes.
We elect you, and I want answers. I mean,
I have expressed my vehement disapproval for the fireman's salary beginning last November during the salary study. I'm against the Kelly days. I think they need more money, and I've said that. So
okay. Is it
that's where I'm at.
New budget? I mean, will they be getting an increase?
We're looking at the Kelly Day. We're looking at eliminating the Kelly Day for them.
Okay, I know what you're saying, but
which would amount to an increase in salary.
Yes.
Okay, in comparison, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, you spent a lot of money for accounting for bringing salaries up to par. What happened to the firemen? In case you didn't know it, I was once a fireman, okay? So I feel for my brothers, okay? So what happened? Did you kind of forget them?
That study actually was last November. It wasn't 2 or 3 years ago, and the study was done over the entire city scope of salary. And you know, I admire our city manager. He does a great job, but he and I were at great polar opposites on how we felt about that scale. And we're still trying to, I remind him of my feelings, and I don't know what the other board members are. But I made my feelings very clear during that meeting in November, and I still have the same opinion.
Okay, since we're losing them, and you know that, I mean, you guys don't, but I know the mayor and city manager do, because you were at a meeting with the firemen. I heard tell about it. Again, they're my brothers because I was a fireman too. I know, I have friends.
I was accidentally at the meeting. I took them donuts that morning after they helped do sandbags, and I walked into a meeting. I wasn't invited. Then they told me I could stay.
You were there, and
I was there.
I do know they're going through a lot of them, and a lot of it is salary. If you don't address it, we're losing. I mean, they get a few months' experience and go to other areas.
Mr. Schultz, you know, if you listen to those firemen, and it sounds like you have, the main issue is this Kelly Day. If you look at the salaries aren't out of line necessarily. It's the fact that we have a Kelly Day and they don't work overtime like all these other municipalities in the county. What I've been told a lot in the last 2 weeks, because I certainly have issues when you lose 4 or 5 a year, we want to recruit and we mainly want to retain. I'm fully aware of the fact that, you know, we're not doing that, especially out there. I'm looking at eliminating that Kelly Day before next budget year, but that's something that has not been put in front of the commission yet.
So
when you listen to them, they will say if you eliminate the Kelly Day, we are competitive.
Okay, so you're saying that something can be done then?
Yes.
It's a question, sir.
Yes.
I mean, you know, the rest of them are looking at me, but I'm asking you.
I'm saying something can be done. It'll be put in front of the commission within the next 2 months.
Okay.
Minimum.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Anyone else have anything tonight? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Long meeting, but that lady was up here, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I've been watching the EDA since about, I say 15 years ago. The first lady that was director of that I was acquainted with absconded with about $300,000 worth of funds and walked out the door and accomplished nothing. The second director that came in, he tried, he accomplished nothing, and he left. It seems from her conversation that she's doing a heck of a lot for Panama City, the airport, and a few other things. She cannot guarantee that the people that she said were going to be hired were going to buy a house in Lynn Haven. She can't guarantee that. My problem with this is I had a conversation written, documented with EDA concerning the 390 upgrade and the loss of the businesses in Lynn Haven. I have it documented that they don't care about anything in any area less than 30 people. She just said that she was going to bring in 25 people. She's concerned with that. She's not concerned with the 30-some-odd people we're going to lose on the 390 expansion and the businesses, so they're going to just throw that out the window. A couple of years ago, I think Mr. Commissioner Friend, and I use the term Commissioner Friend, questioned the amount of money we pay EDA. He questioned it. I remember him doing it. Do we know how much you pay them? The last number I was given was $27,000.
Yeah.
Cut to 20, okay. So we
They requested about 29 this year.
Okay.
It's
so
based on population.
It was adjusted. That was good. It was a good question by Commissioner Friend. My point is this. It doesn't seem that we're getting any bang for the buck out of this. And that's what I'm looking at. I don't mind them doing something for Panama City Airport. Yes, we're part of Bay County. We should contribute to that. But I'd like to see some results out of this group. We have our own EDA representative that is trying his darndest to do it. But with the criteria of only 30 people, then we'll start to worry about it. That doesn't seem right. And I'd like to take a little more concern with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Does anyone else have a concern this evening they'd like to bring before the commission? Thank you so much for your patience. It's been a very long meeting, a lot of public hearings. Thank you, gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.